feel very strongly that a museum has to work for its local community. And by that, I mean the sort of 20-mile diameter around us. But there aren't a whole lot of people who live in that, in that 20-mile diameter. So our catchment area would be Donegal and the bordering counties of Derry and Tyrone and Sligo and Leitrim, and then beyond that. And I think if a museum works well for its local community, then national and international tourists, it'll bounce for them. They'll get a kick out of it too. And coronavirus came at a really interesting time because there's a lot of discussions about museums and how they do their business and why they do their business more than anything else. And it really has focused a lot of attention on that. So we've kind of four strings to our bow, I think, really. We have the Glebe House and its collection. And we think we have about 50,000 visitors a year, but only about 8,000 of those visit the house. So it's a bit like our lost leader. It's the thing that is most attractive about the site, but actually the thing that very few people really look at. You know, you go on a tour of the Glebe House if you're a tourist, or if you come regularly every few years, every 2 or 3 years, but you don't go to it all the time. So it is an amazing collection. It was assembled by Derek Hill, who was a portrait painter and a collector. It's primarily a collection of paintings, but it's lots of other things. But it is very attractive, and it is what brings people to us. The second thing we have is the gallery and the exhibition program. And our regular visitors who come, more than once every summer, come for the exhibition program. We run 4 curated exhibitions a year, and 21st Century Ireland and 21 Artworks and Mergers and Acquisitions by Lockheed Morris was last summer's, they were 2 of last summer's exhibitions. About 30,000 people visit the gallery every year, but they also visit the gardens. The house and the gallery are open from 11 o'clock in the morning until 6:30 in the evening. The gardens have been open from dawn until dusk every day, unless there's really bad weather. So we think maybe 50,000 people visit the gardens, and they're, in a sense, they're the least important thing about the site, but they're actually the thing that people get the most out of. And the gardens are the thing that we use very effectively to deliver our programs. And we have a huge cultural program that runs throughout the year. We open from Easter till Halloween, and we do lots of different programs during that time. We'll look at those in a second. The fourth thing that we have that's really useful is the staff here. And this has been a very difficult year for us because we've lost a lot of our staff. 3 retired, and 2 of the younger ones have sort of finished college and moved on, and somebody's out sick. So we've gone from a staff at this time of the year of 10 or 11 down to 5, and that's a real struggle. So our cultural program is kind of what we show people. And again, there's 4 things we do. There's the visual arts exhibition, which we've looked at. There's annual events we'll look at in a second, and the summer program, and also the education program. So the annual events are things that seem to resonate well with us. We do things at Easter and Halloween, as I said, but we do events for National Tree Week, Drawing Day. We do a Poetry Ireland thing every summer. We do something for Heritage Week for the Baltina Festival, of course the Donegal Arts Festival, and the Donegal Chamber Music Festival. And I think it's really important that the events that we do fit, that we're not trying to shoehorn things in that don't really fit for us. It has to feel to me like this Tree Talk or Drawing Day or whatever. If it suits somewhere else better, I think somewhere else should be doing it rather than us. Our summer program is the thing that suffered most this year. We do a family program for children. It runs from 2 o'clock until 4 o'clock every Wednesday in July and August, and it accounts for 1/3 of our numbers during that period. So it's a huge amount of work, and it's very intense, but it's very very successful. But it's very touchy-feely, and it's just not something that you could possibly do during a summer like this. We do art tutorials with adults. Those are for very small groups. Typically, we would get maybe 600 people on a Wednesday for the Wee Ones Wednesdays. Art tutorials, sort of 20 people would be a big day, but it's really effective on social media because it photographs very well. The family days, we're very careful about not photographing children, so we don't. It's very hard to show people what the family days look like. It's very easy to show them what the painting days for adults look like. And this is a very typical one of our sort of family programs. We run them. We run one in July and one in August. So this was last July, every Wednesday last July. We were looking at bees, butterflies, and bugs. It's really important that there's a learning opportunity here. So we have a trail that runs throughout the gardens, and families have to find the different points on the trail, like the bug trail here or the bug hotel here on the right. We give them a lot of information, and they do crafts. So it's that kind of experiential learning. You can see here on the left, under the ladybird, we have the fact sheet. So hopefully the children go away with a very pretty craft to take home, but with that they've learned something, they've gained some knowledge. All of this is impossible to do this summer. We haven't even tried to do anything like this summer, really, to be honest. And then we run an education program in the autumn. We run it for preschools, junior and senior cycle primary schools, and we run it for Leaving Cert. And again, it's difficult to see how we're going to be able to do that physically this year. So we're maybe looking at going online. Everything's outside, and the autumn, is the weather's tough. But it's funny, we found that the children don't mind the weather. It's the teachers, the parents and the teachers that struggle with the weather. So everything's done outside, and we just have to make it work. So 2020 was a very difficult year for all of us. But like I say, there are huge opportunities in this, and we tried to make the best of those opportunities. We started on St. Patrick's Day, actually, with this Home is Where the Art Is challenge. It was a challenge that the Regional Cultural Centre in Letterkenny ran for children, and they asked us to do an adult one. So we went for still lifes. So it allowed us to look at our collection in a way that we wouldn't have had an excuse to do normally. This was the first one. It was just a set of Victorian carpet bowls. And then the second one, we're encouraging people to post their drawings and to discuss it. But it also allows us to talk about the objects. So in this particular challenge, there was a phrenology head. So we got to tell people a little bit about phrenology heads and what they do or what they were supposed to represent. And this is kind of what we were expecting. But we got a few very interesting results. We got this one, for instance. I'm really taken with the way that she had changed the terms on the correct head to things that dealt with lockdown. I really like in the end, all that's left is love here over the head's mouth. And this is the final challenge. So we got to talk about, you can see the ties here on the back of the wardrobe. That's one of our next projects that we're working on. And you can see reflected in the mirror and there in the bottom right, pieces from a previous one. So we were sort of recycling them and joining them up. And this is my favorite result out of the whole challenge. I just love this picture that someone sent in. The other thing we did is we ran a series of Leaving Cert art tutorials dealing with a question that comes up in the Leaving Cert. And that was for the Leaving Cert that didn't happen, the exams that didn't happen this year, because we realized that students wouldn't be able to visit art galleries. So they couldn't do, if they hadn't done the research by the time the lockdown happened, they weren't going to be able to do the research. So we just produced these videos very quickly on our phones. I live on site, so I had access to the site. So we looked at the different aspects of the exhibition and how you assess an exhibition and how you can answer the question. And it was a very steep learning curve because I had never made a video myself before. I'm sorry, there's no moving pictures here. I just picked a bad part of this there you go. And we got great feedback from that. We also did a virtual tour or a live tour of the house for the Donegal Arts Festival. The tour takes 45 minutes. We did the virtual tour in 20 minutes. I did some pieces in English, and my colleague Jean on the right did some pieces in Irish. And that was very successful too. And I think it's really important at a time like this that if you have to do something, like we had to go online, you have to make it work for you. You have to get something out of it too. So all of these things that we did were things that we needed to do anyway, but hadn't had time to do. So they're things that, you know, I feel will work for us after the pandemic when things go back to normal. These are things that I think we can recycle and always use. The lockdown in the Republic changed quite quickly. We were supposed to open on the 20th of July, but they moved that back to the 29th of June, and that made it really difficult. So we produced a video diary of the sort of chaos involved in trying to pull that forward by 3 weeks. And just talked
about... It's Wednesday the 17th of June, and we've just finished filming.
Talked about the process of pulling an exhibition together really quickly using our own collection, what we were concerned about and how we were, you know, trying to do it. This is some of the filming for the Donegal Arts Festival. And then we did the regional cultural centres curated content. They invited artists to take over their social media every week during the lockdown. I think they're still doing it. And they asked me to do it as the curator of the Glebe Gallery. So it was a really interesting project because I was doing it from my point of view, not as the Glebe Gallery, but as me. So I got to give a lot of opinion, and it's something that I wouldn't be comfortable doing in an exhibition or on our own social media. So I just looked at all those questions I was talking about earlier about what museums are and why we do. So if you like, the Museum Standard Programme of Ireland is all about making sure that what we do, we're doing it properly and we're doing it to the best international practice. But it doesn't really ask why we're doing these things. And in this series of articles, I kind of looked at, you know, why we're doing these things. You know, I think very often in museums you just do things, and in tourism, you know, you just do things because you do them. You do them over. We have an exhibition program because we're a gallery, and that's what galleries do. But I think we can do more. We can be much more effective than that. So these are some of those. I don't really have time to look at this. This is an Artisan Trails that we've been working at. It was our big victim because we had developed this trail of robots that help people with autism to socialize. And we were planning to launch it on World Autism Day, which was just before the lockdown, but we knew it was coming, so we cancelled that. So we have these out in the garden ready to roll, but we have no way of presenting them yet. So really, I'm just looking at the winter and where we're going in the future and trying to figure out what this winter might look like. And like everybody else, I don't really know when it's going to get back to normal. Here's our contact details. If anybody wants to contact us separately afterwards, please let us know. And I'm really sorry I've taken longer than I should have, so I want to apologize for that.
No problem, Adrian. Thank you very much. So we did have a small technical glitch there in that no one saw your slide. So
you're kidding.
So it was a nice sort of Kafkian performance piece you did there with all the references to the other thing. But so we will share those with people. And I think, to be honest, slides or no slides, it was really interesting telling of what's going on at the Glebe. And we'll have you back in a wee while for questions as well. So we kept the panelists' names all the same on this one. So we're going to move on now to Adrian Kerr from the Museum of Free Derry. Adrian, if you want to make yourself known. And Adrian will be going over his stuff. Yeah. So if you have slides, Adrian, make sure to click the share screen button before we do the same thing again.
No, it's okay. I didn't use slides, so there's nothing to come up. Anyway, just in keeping with the theme of having Adrians here, my name's Adrian Kerr. I'm the curator of the Museum of Free Derry. For those who don't know this, the museum is the Ireland Independent Museum cell. The Trust that tells the story of what happened in Derry late 60s, early 70s. This is sort of from civil rights struggles to Sunday. And I suppose the perspective of those who are most affected by this, family members, local residents, people like that. And most of our staff here have a direct familial connection to the bands. When we set up the museum, I think these events that we're always told from like, nobody's going to be a journalist, going to be a historian, going to be. We wanted to do that from the point of view of people here, but when we were setting this up as an educational project, it's also become one of the main visitor attractions in the city. We think that people who come to the north as tourists are really, really interested in the recent history, and that's what they want to come. And we, I think, are now the most visited attraction area. And since we reopened this in 2017, our visitor numbers have been going up every year. We passed the 38,000 mark last year. And we were really confident that for the first time we would pass the 40,000 mark in 2020. I mean, we get visitors from all over the world and from all sectors. We get tour groups, school groups, university groups, independent travellers, families. And through that, we were able to generate up to, I think it was close to 75% of our income from visitors. And this is a very, very high percentage for a museum. It's great to have that sort of income.
Adrian, sorry to jump in there. You're a wee bit choppy. Whatever's happening audio-wise, we've got interference or something on that.
Try and get a wee bit closer. Would that help in any way?
Sure, we'll give it another couple of minutes, and then possibly we might need to jump over to Kieran just and come back to you after that. Just to see what.
Well, what if I turn the camera off? Would that be a wee bit easier?
Try that, sure.
Does that sound any clearer now?
Give it a go, and we'll see what happens.
Right, where I got to. I was mentioning the fact that we have a 75% income from visitors, and that keeps us independent, and it means we're not wholly reliant on funding. But it also left us in a very vulnerable position when that income was removed, and that's what happened in March this year. When we closed down, we lost all of our visitor income literally overnight. And in the 4 months since that we've been closed, we have lost a very, very significant amount of our annual income. And that's just so far. These losses are going to continue for the foreseeable future at least. And for us, this came at a time when we were just finding our feet again, when we were tidying up outstanding issues from the rebuild of the museum, getting to the point of meeting the sort of visitor number and financial targets that we had set, and reaching a stage where we could start to really explore the full potential of the museum and look at projects around the core exhibition, external exhibitions, programs, local involvement in programs and stuff like that. We were just reaching that point when all this happened. And like most organizations operating in tourism at a community level, we don't have any reserves to fall back on. We're a not-for-profit social economy organization, and we just about make enough with some grant funding coming in to keep the museum open from year to year. And that, to be honest, is our target. If we can reopen every year, we're doing okay. I mean, for a lot of the community tourism organizations in the city, visitor income it's almost secondary. A lot of them are voluntary led. A lot of them have another purpose other than tourism. A lot of them are, for instance, a place of worship. But for us and the likes of the Siege Museum, that income is the biggest part of what we need to survive, to sustain jobs, and basically overnight it was gone. So during the period where we were actually locked down and closed, there was a lot of help available. A lot of funders, council for instance, offered to pay grants up front to help us with the cash flow. That will come back and bite us later on in the year at the time when we normally claim those grants down, but we'll worry about that then. The British government hate to say anything nice about them, but they introduced various schemes such as job retention and the various rate reliefs and stuff that we were able to access. The Heritage Fund were very helpful for us. We applied to their emergency fund, which was set up to help keep heritage projects alive. And without all of this, we would have had to, at the very least, mothball the entire project for a period and probably lay off a lot, if not all, staff. And this is what kept us going until we could reopen. And while we were closed, we did still manage to get some good work done. We had a major online exhibition commemorating the 10th anniversary of the Savile Report. We had an exhibition on the centenary of events of 1920, which we put together with Artisan. And we got some work done on archiving museum standards and stuff. I think there's an impression that we all had plenty of time under lockdown, but that really was not the case. And I would like to have got a lot more work done. Then it came to the point where we could reopen, which was quite vague for a while, but then we eventually got a date. And getting ready for that, it felt that we were doing risk assessments on risk assessments on risk assessments, and spending days measuring out the building and designing ways in which we reopen under the guidelines. And guidelines that were constantly changing right up until the last minute, which didn't help us. And thankfully, council again stepped in and gave some help on that and some health and safety advice. But just a warning for anyone who's planning to reopen in the near future, really don't underestimate the amount of work involved in getting the public building ready to allow the public back into it again. One of the biggest changes for us in the run-up to reopening was the change from 2 metre to 1 metre distance, and that was a major help for us. At 2 metres, we would have had to open a new entrance to the museum through the back door. This would have involved an awful lot of work, a lot of effort, and that would have been ongoing effort to maintain that for any length of time. At least at 1 metre, we were able to reopen with a layout that was somewhat close to normal, not quite, but somewhat close. Now that we have reopened, we've been opened for the last 2 weeks, but we've only been able to manage 2 days a week. We'll be keeping that under constant review and hoping to extend it as soon as possible, but at the moment, it's just not possible. I mentioned earlier that most of our staff have a personal experience of the period we cover in the museum. That also unfortunately means they're in an age group where they are considered vulnerable. So we just can't bring them back in yet, even if the income was there to do so. Numbers since we reopened have been a bit of a pleasant surprise. I think maybe a wee bit more than we expected, but when we compare them to this time last year, for instance, they're still only about half of what we would have expected in any one day. And, we're only comparing day to day. If we look at what we're getting over a week, it's a small fraction of what we would have got this time last year. One comment on the visitors we're getting, they've basically all either been Irish or people based in Ireland. We haven't seen anyone from outside that yet. And the catch-22 for us is that we can't open the museum on enough days to attract enough visitors. Until there are enough visitors to justify opening more days, that's just going to be a judgment call as we go along. We get plenty of calls from visitors asking when we're open, asking when they can come into the museum, but even if we add all that together, it is still only a fraction of what we would normally expect at this time of year. So the future for us, it's hard to judge what the future holds for us at the minute. We stay open for now. We'll keep the hours under review and we'll extend them whenever we can. But like everyone else, we're at the mercy of circumstances beyond our control. When we look at other places, we see lockdowns being reimposed, restrictions renewed, even local outbreaks here. It's possible that over the next few months we're going to go backwards as well as forwards. We have to take that into account. And even if there is no reimposition of restrictions or no new restrictions, it's going to be a hard journey. We're facing a period where our potential market is likely to be restricted to Ireland, possibly Britain. And this means for us that sort of 60 to 70% of our normal visitor base is just not available to us at the time being. We were heading towards August, which would be traditionally our busiest month of the year by far. And I'd say it's likely we'll be counting visitor numbers in the hundreds instead of the normal thousands. I mean, even though we all want to see foreign visitors again, we want to see them coming through our doors. You know, we do have to take into account the potential dangers inherent in this and accept that people's health and welfare is a lot more important than visitor numbers. When we get to the end of the summer, we move into a period where we would rely on school and student groups to provide visitor numbers and income. But really at the minute, you know, even if schools do return as normal come September, there's no indication whatsoever that they're going to be considering traveling anywhere outside of the schools. We were planning for the future at the moment. The Heritage Fund have funded us to draw up a resilience and marketing plan for this period, and that'll look at all aspects of our organisation, from opening hours, staffing, pricing issues, to try and sort of reset us for a period of operating in a completely different market, and to look at the markets that are still available to us rather than our traditional market, which would have been aimed towards markets we can't get anymore. But the aim for us, I think, like most visitor attractions and tourist businesses, is really at this stage just survival until the tourist season kicks off in spring of next year. This one is gone, no matter what we would like to think, and just with the hope that by then we're back to normal or something a lot more approaching normal. And to help organisations like ours survive, government, local government funders, you know, they need to recognise that the impact on the tourist and heritage economy doesn't just stop when restrictions are lifted. We don't go straight back to normal. I mean, our problems won't stop, or won't even begin to stop, until people are not only legally able to travel as freely as they want, but that when they also feel personally able to travel, and we can start to see the sort of tourist numbers that the Northwest had become used to over the last number of years. But that, I think, is probably next summer at the earliest. So the people who can help us, the people who want to keep this tourism industry going, and community tourism in the heritage sector, they just need to realise that we need help for a long time yet. This is not something that stops when we get a news announcement saying people can travel again, people don't need the distance. This is going to have an impact on us for probably quite a long time to come. And that's me.
Okay, thank you very much, Adrian. Great. So thanks for it worked better definitely when the camera went off. I don't know if it's your face that it's causing interference. I'm not sure.
We'll have words about that later.
No worries. Okay, so folks, just a wee reminder, any questions that you may have as we're going along, there is a Q&A function. If you want to throw them in there, we'll all address them at the end after the final presentation, which is going to come from Kieran Doherty from Tourism Ireland. So just any thoughts that you have, you can put them in there, and then we'll address them to the panel afterwards. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Kieran, who'll be our final presentation today. And Kieran, if you've got slides, make sure that they're shared at the bottom as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do that now, Connor. Thanks, and then I'll maybe turn the view off as well, because that seemed to work better maybe on the Wi-Fi. So let me see if this works. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah, that's coming up perfectly. Yeah.
All right, happy days. So yeah, thank you, Connor. Thanks, Adrian and Adrian. So yeah, my name's Kieran Doherty. I work for Tourism Ireland, and this morning I was just going to quickly run through a few things given the topic in terms of trends for tourism. I just wanted to give a wee bit of background on who we are, Tourism Ireland, the research that we're undertaking at the moment globally to see just what position the consumer mindset is in and trying to establish any trends that will help us to retarget and bring consumers back to the island. And also just to give you an idea of the type of activity that we've been doing, during all this lockdown period since March, basically to try to keep Ireland front of mind for consumers when they can visit again. So for those of you that are not familiar with Tourism Ireland, we're the organisation tasked with the marketing of the island of Ireland overseas, so that's both Ireland and Northern Ireland. We work with the two sister agencies, Tourism Northern Ireland and Falch Ireland, here on the island. And we have 15 offices all around the globe. So from New York, Toronto, London, Paris, Milan, Madrid, Sydney. We have a really strong team overseas doing the full range of marketing for the island. So we do TV, we do radio, we do out of home, print, a lot of online stuff. So we're very strong digitally, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through and how we leverage our online platforms. We have Ireland.com, that's our main website. So that's 29 versions in 11 different languages. So last year in 2019, we had over 23 million visits to that suite of websites. And we're pretty strong on Facebook, in terms of social media. We've 4.5 million plus Facebook fans across the suite of different Facebook profiles, strong on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, etc. We'll get into all of those numbers. But also importantly, we work very closely with airline carriers, with trade partners, tour operators, travel agents all around the globe. And we've also got a pretty strong publicity team as well, working with journalists and influencers, bringing them into the island, and letting them experience the brilliant product that we have. And then they go away and they develop content and push that messaging out. So that's essentially what we do. Since 13th of March, we were gearing up for our global greenings, where we turned the Empire State Building, the Great Wall of China, all of these iconic places all around the world, we turned those green. I mean, we had seen in January, obviously, issues with coronavirus happening in China. The Chinese market for us is less than 1% of international tourism. So while it was a concern there for the team, it wasn't a huge impact. But then our team in Milan, things started to escalate there in Italy. And we all know then, just how quickly things accelerated. So the vast majority of my colleagues overseas and here on the island, have been working from home since then, since the end of March. And almost all of our paid activity, was put on hold from then, and it's still on hold and will be likely on hold until the end of August. So just trying to understand the status and all across the globe, we undertook a major piece of global research. Now, I'm conscious I'm going to talk just a little bit around that research, and I'm not going to share lots and lots of numbers on screen. But what I will do is I will follow up with all of the attendees here today via Connor, and I'll share the latest findings. And I would also encourage you all to sign up on tourismireland.com, not Ireland.com. Ireland.com is the consumer website, but tourismireland.com is our corporate site. And so if you make sure that you're registered there, you'll get updates from our corporate team, and you'll also get invites to webinars that we'll be running over the coming weeks and months, giving updates on where we're at with our research and our plans to get back with campaigns in the different markets. So this research that we're undertaking is really going to help us to inform the new business plan, because we're going to have to develop something that's going to be markedly different given the new climate. So this piece of research will really inform the where, the when, the who, the what, and the how we will get back into market. So if you think about the where, it's like which markets should we prioritize, where's going to be the best short-term prospects for us, when, when's going to be the right time to activate marketing, and at what level and which different market. The who is really around which audiences should we speak to in this changing climate. We have segments, culturally curious, social energizers, and great escapers. Have they changed? And this research will really have to help us to understand that a little bit better. Also the what, which message is now going to resonate with concerned consumers out there when it comes to traveling. and how do we get at these different consumers, which channels are going to be the most relevant and effective. So at the start of May, we commissioned this big piece of research, and we kicked it off with an omnibus tracker with Kantar, and that ran from the 14th to the 18th of May. That was essentially an online survey of 1,000 different respondents in our top 4 markets, and the top 4 markets being Great Britain, the United States, France, and Germany. So we ran that. It was really to give us a sense of where people's mindset were at, how concerned were they with the concept of traveling, et cetera, had household income been affected, and I'll run through a few of those findings. So we ran that in May, and we actually followed it up then between the 11th and the 15th of June. So the key findings really that we're seeing from those are that concern does remain. The consumer mindset and sentiment is moving in the right direction, but progress is slow, and a lot slower than we would have anticipated. So still fewer than half of international respondents are comfortable taking a short break or a holiday in Europe. However, positively, Ireland and Northern Ireland remain well regarded when we compare them to other European and global comparators. So Ireland has really performed well and is still seen as a safe and comfortable destination for people to travel to when the time is right. What's coming out really strong is that VFR, visiting friends and family, sun holidays, and countryside breaks are likely to be considered the first type of holidays that people will take. I mean, we perform really well from the VFR perspective, particularly from GB, and we can do countryside breaks really well. I'm just not sure on the sun holiday bit, I'm sure you can all appreciate. The first round of research that show that younger consumers may be more comfortable, and that makes sense. But what we're seeing from the second round is it's actually less pronounced for the island of Ireland, and there seems to be similar comfort levels right across all age groups, which would be encouraging for us, given that the culturally curious are our main target market. Quarantine, remains a vast deterrent, and 3/4 of all markets surveyed wouldn't travel if self-isolation, was still a requirement. And there is economic challenges. Between 28 and 45% of respondents see a reduction in their household income as a result of coronavirus, and GB would be the most pronounced in that. The German and French markets are likely to be the first markets to take holidays again, but it really, as Adrian was mentioning there earlier, summer 2021 across the board seems to be the watershed for travel. So the next stages of our research post the July wave, which we're about to carry out now, means that we're going to only sample respondents who take non-sun European holidays. We're going to double the number of questions, and we're going to broaden those top 4 markets. So we're going to go beyond the US, GB, France, and Germany, and we're going to start to explore what the sentiment is in Italy, Spain, Canada, Netherlands, Denmark, Switzerland, and we're also running qualitative research in terms of focus groups in GB, France, and Germany. So this will all help to inform our new business plan and allow us to be as tightly targeted and as powerfully motivational as we can be. So as I say, I will follow up with this and signpost you to get an access to more details on all of those points that I've spoken on. So as I said, we had paused almost all of our paid activity since April, but what we have done is we have sort of reframed our Fill Your Heart with Ireland campaign. Many of you that will be signed up to our industry websites and industry alerts should be aware of this, but I will also circulate this. But essentially, we saw very high levels of engagement from our online communities. I mentioned those big numbers in terms of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And all through the lockdown, we were seeing really high levels of engagement. So, for example, in Spain, a regular social post may get 20,000 views, but we were seeing over 300,000 views. In Italy, we had 7,000 trade engaged online event that we ran, and in the US we were getting double the level of engagement through our e-signs. So what we've done is we've ramped up our activity in terms of online and pushing them out organically through our channels. So we have a number of groups here where we have been looking at the start to repurpose the great content that was being developed by people here in Ireland on the island You know, so when you look at this, you can think of the chefs that have been creating, you know, recipes and cooking at home. Artists have been doing painting, sharing poetry, etc. Adrian mentioned there around virtual tours, so a number of attractions have been helping they keep Ireland and the attractions alive by pushing out those virtual tours. So we've been trying to leverage all of that content, and we've developed a number of subgroups with curators. So if anybody's here has got any great content around ancestry or genealogy, I actually curate the genealogy group. But then we have a number of other colleagues that are curating content in culinary, virtual tours, humor, storytelling, etc., etc. So this is working really, really well for us, and this will work, continue to work over the number of weeks before we get back going with our paid campaigns. And so I thought I would just share a couple of examples of the type of content that I've been pushing through and we've been pushing out. So you can see there, these are just examples, just some screenshots. I wasn't adventurous enough to start sharing videos across this because I've had some poor experiences with videos playing across Zoom. So like the Heaney Home Place, you know, we leverage some content there around World Poetry Day. You're all familiar with World Heritage Day, World Music Day. A lot of these days have been happening. We've tried to become part of that buzz, but also push the island and the Ireland message out there, and it's all about keeping it front of mind for consumers for when they can travel again. See Jamesy there, James McCloy from Glenshane, Sheepdog Trails. You can go and you can experience that tour up in Glenshane, and you know that whole sense of the outdoors really resonates with consumers at the moment, given the current pandemic, and that sense of getting away to somewhere that is fresh air, etc., etc. Rope Bridge, and also the Trad Music Trail in Belfast. It worked really well. I mean, you're talking views there of that little video ran into the hundreds of thousands, and it performed remarkably well for us. So there's a huge appetite still out there to engage with Irish content, with, you know, everything around our arts, our culture, our landscapes. And it's really important that we continue to push that out so that people know that Ireland is ready. So we've been starting to change the messaging around that. You know, it was all about lockdown. Now it is, as people are coming out, as things are starting to open, we're very keen to get tapping into the content now that show places opening here. Even though we don't have, you know, travel restrictions, the travel restrictions are still in place for a lot of our markets. It's really important that we continue to push that positive message of Ireland. So I hope that I didn't run beyond my 10 minutes. I just wanted to share here just a few examples of the positive comments that we've been getting on all of the Fill Your Heart with Ireland stuff, and just to, again, reinforce that the arts and culture of Ireland is hugely important from a tourism perspective. I mean, we have a number of pillars that the whole brand Ireland and the Fill Your Heart with Ireland campaign thrive upon, and they're really made up of living culture. So activities with people, with music, with art, with storytelling, built heritage. So from ancient buildings such as Newgrange up to more contemporary buildings such as Titanic Belfast, really give Ireland and Northern Ireland stand out. Views and landscapes, soft adventure, you know, being able to go hiking and cycling, TV and movies. We try to leverage, you know, the Game of Thrones, the Star Wars, etc., Derry Girls phenomenon. And also importantly, food and drink. All of that play a part in helping us to push the positive Tourism Ireland message. So thank you. That is me, Connor. So I assume I can stop sharing.
That's great, Kieran. Thank you very much. Could I just ask the Adrian cohort to turn on their cameras and mics again, and we'll move on to Q&A. We've just a few minutes left really for questions and answers. So thanks very much, Kieran, again. First question we have in, and just again, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. If you want to put anything in there, we'll try and get through them. This is really for anyone. So this is from Anne-Marie Buchanan, who says she's opening up a gypsy tourist caravan site next spring, depending on plan permission. It is unique to the north and will be culturally diverse and economically friendly. It's all new to me. What advice would you give her? So I'll just put that to yourself first, Kieran, and then
I don't think of any advice as such other than to say congratulations on getting the timing right, that it's next summer rather than this summer. You know, hopefully she'll be opening up at a time when markets are just coming back to normal and there could be a big demand for it. And opening up a new project this summer could have been the death knell for anything. So she just got lucky.
Very good. Anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, Amory, what I would suggest is absolutely speak to, I'm not sure if you're going to be, if you're based in Donegal or in Derry, but absolutely speak to some of my colleagues in Tourism Northern Ireland or in Falch Ireland, because they're tasked with product development and they will be able to signpost you and give you some assistance there. And also, you know, if you're thinking of international visitors, you know, and being appealing, I would again signpost you, go and look at some of the research we have for maybe the British market, maybe for French or Germany. Just see what it is that those international visitors are interested in, and you will then try to turn your proposition. And also just avail then of any opportunities that we may have. You know, Tourism Ireland, you can get involved in e-signs, you can start following and becoming part of the conversation, you know, with our online communities.
Perfect. Adrian, Adrian Kelly, there was something that you picked up on that I thought was important, that the touchy-feeliness of the things that you guys do, and how that can be adapted. So, you know, this is to everyone really, like how can we take that sort of need to be there element, and how can we make that relevant and also a potential revenue generator for the sector?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can look at it differently. I think that up until now, we've only been interested in people coming here. And from a tourism point of view, that's really important. From a museum perspective, it's what you learn and what you teach is more important. So, you know, I kind of looked at this as a whole opportunity to reach an audience that has no intention or no ability of ever coming here. You know, that audience that we've never dealt with because we're only interested in the people that can physically come. I saw it as an opportunity to reach people that have no intention of ever coming to Ireland or to Donegal or to the Glebe Gallery, you know, and that's kind of the approach that we took. Certainly the programs that we run would be impossible to run at the moment, because they attract more people than we could cope with. You know, the numbers would be sort of, I suppose, broadly similar to what Adrian gets in Derry. But when we're busy, we're too busy. Even last year when we were busy, we were too busy to cope. So, you know, the fact that it's quiet this year makes it possible to be open, really, you know. I mean, I think what I said in the presentation about how if it works for the local community, it'll work for everybody else, because they'll just get the vibe that it is vibrant and it is exciting and it is, you know, something worth coming to. And I think probably where we slip up is we here at the Glebe is that we have a really solid website that we see as a sort of a permanent thing, and then we use social media to sort of present the program that we run throughout the summer, and tourists look at the website and our visitors look at the social media, and we're maybe not reaching the tourists with the I think our website doesn't show the kind of physical activity that goes on here, and we need to maybe ramp that up a wee bit. And you know, all those sort of things like the video diary, we put that out on YouTube, and we put some of that stuff onto our website, but not all of it. And it just came down to not having enough time to do everything. As Adrian said, the sort of the risk assessments involved in being closed were brutal, but opening again, they just, you know, they trebled. The little risk assessment element just went through the roof, to a point where we were doing risk assessments nearly every day for a while there. And you know, everybody always cries about how many staff they have, but it's really because we don't have it. None of us have any staff, you know, and you can only do one thing, and the one thing we've been doing while we're open is being open. So, you know, that couple of months where we had time to do, that's over now. It's taken up all our time, and that's unfortunate, and I want to move away from that as soon as possible and get back to thinking about developing the place. That doesn't really answer your question, but I think being more dynamic on looking at what what tourists, looking at how tourists see the site and be more dynamic there, I think is how we can increase our numbers. But I think the summer's a write-off in terms of events and, you know, physical programs and things like that.
Yeah. Okay, just a sort of follow-on from that, from Laura Aguirre from the Rathmullen Film Festival. She's a sort of two-parter here. In terms of the digital stuff, I'll put the two Adrians first. Like, what do you think the strengths and limitations of putting things, moving offerings online are? And then the second part would be more, can this be an income generator for local and get local communities engaged?
Well, part of what we did this summer online, we had the 10th anniversary of the release of the Savile report. And that's something that we as an organisation had to take on. That was obviously a major anniversary for us. So we were in a position where we had to find a way to do it online. And I think we managed to do that quite well. We're hoping to recreate a similar sort of event in the real world come October. But the problem is you can use online and you can do some fantastic stuff. And with a bit of thought, you can really come out with good displays and exhibitions online. But the second part of the question is the one that I'm still struggling with. And I think that a lot of people are still struggling with is how to find a way that it becomes an income generator. You know, you get your biggest audiences on Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that, and there's no way of generating anything from that. We have discussed ways of maybe doing virtual tours as an attachment to the website that would be behind a paywall. I don't know how we could do it yet, and I also don't want to do it in such a way that someone would do a virtual tour on the website and then maybe not want to come and visit the museum. I mean, the aim is always to get people in. I think we could use online promotion to, you know, to generate interest in people, but I'm still struggling with the idea of how we can use it to actually replace anything.
Yeah, I don't think it does replace anything. I think we need to look at 2020 as a standalone year, you know, and I totally agree with you about how you know, in February I didn't know how to make a video. You know, we had to learn to do the stuff very quickly, and that was probably a healthy thing. I think with the online tour that we did with the Errigal Arts Festival, we tried to be strategic with that and use it as a kind of a taster and present it as the sort of thing that you can learn enough from it to get a good experience out of it, but it really would make you want to come and see. We didn't show everything, you know, it was a 20-minute tour where we picked sort of 5 or 6 very specific things to talk about, but hopefully it really whets the appetite and, you know, it reaches an audience that we couldn't have reached in that way before, but that it'll make them want to come and see us. But I don't think you can you can generate cash from that. I don't think you can generate cash from that. I think you have to try and generate interest and you have to try and get people to come. The other thing I would say about everybody moving online was that there was a huge amount of noise online, and there was kind of, we were all doing too much online, and the good stuff was getting lost just in among hundreds of things that, you know, I'm not saying that any of it wasn't good, but there was a pressure to be online, you know, in a very regular way. And we quickly took the decision that we were going to try and do 2 things a week and no more than that, where I saw colleagues were doing 3 things every day. And it was just like, you turn them off in the end up because you were just hearing too much about, you know, I'm not going to name names, but you're hearing too much about the same place over and over and over again. So I think you need to be online. You need to be strategic, and it needs to be a taster. And I think you need to look at it as a loss leader rather than as a way of generating money. And I know Laura, and I know the film festival and Rathmullen is hugely successful, but it could be bigger, you know. And it's that, how do you get people to go to Rathmullen in February in numbers? You know, it's a very good product there. And it's the right time, because we all put too much effort into getting people here in July and August when they're coming anyway. You know, I think we need to look at the shoulder periods, you know, from like St. Patrick's Day through to Halloween, and try and build those up. I'm sure, Kieran, that's what you would think, is it?
Yeah, absolutely, Adrian. You know, prior to this whole crisis, you know, our big focus was really on sustainability and, you know, and moving beyond, you know, the peak summer season and moving away from those, you know, tourist hotspots, you know, the Storehouse, the Cliffs of Moher, Giant's Causeway. You know, we had actually removed those from any of our TV advertising. It was really about pushing the likes of Faned Lighthouse, you know, the Gobbins, the lesser known attractions. And also, you know, really trying to fill that green haze, you know, that there's lots to see and do in Ireland, you know, across the year, and across all of the regions. But yeah, what I would say as well, just in terms of moving things online, is that, you know, there's absolutely fatigue, you know, with trying to, you know, be online all the time, and now we've got an opportunity to get out. So if the film festival is in February, you know, I don't know about drive-through or drive-up, you know, cinema experience in Rathmullen in February. I don't know how we can guarantee the weather or whatever, but there's innovative ways, and people are thinking, you know, a bit strategically. So, you know, film and tourism is absolutely, you know, like I say, a hugely important product for us as well. So I'd be happy to talk to you as well about that, and, you know, and get you engaged with our channels and see if there's anything that we can do to help and support it as you develop it.
Okay, I'm conscious we're over time here. I just want, there's a couple more questions. We'll try and circulate them to the panelists and see if we can get answers to people when we share the presentations later on. But just as a last wee summary, you know, if you could sort of point at, maybe give us sort of top two things of what 2021 is going to look like from each of your perspectives, what you hope it looks like, maybe.
Hopefully,
go ahead.
One word that I'd like to describe 2021 will be normal, which would be a good enough start off. We can go towards improving, increasing numbers, going down the heritage, cultural and tourism industry here. After that, the first game, let's just read all of them.
You didn't catch a word of that, Adrian.
It's normally not that bad in here. What I say, my first target for next year, if you're hearing me this time, would be normal. That would be a nice place to start. After that, we can concentrate on growing and improving and stuff. But let's get our sort of usual foundation back first, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Okay, cool. Adrian Kelly.
Yeah, I think we've learned a lot about I think we've learned how to do things better here this year. And I think when it gets back to normal, we'll have better tools to present ourselves to that audience that isn't going to come here. And I think just like you know, I was saying that if our like immediately local target audience, you know, the museum target audience, if the vibe works for them, it reaches the tourists. I think the opposite's true too. If you're reaching people that aren't going to come here, you're also reaching people that, you know, will be in a position to come here, and it could increase numbers. And I think it's really important to look at the healthy aspects of what we've gone through as a result of the pandemic. You know, the chance to sit back and think about why we're doing the things we're doing, as well as how we're doing them. You know, I think with the right frame of mind, we can come back very strongly next year, and we can do things better. You know, it could be certainly be nice to get back to normal, but I think, you know, the new normal could be a lot better than what we've been doing up until now. And that's the way I'm looking at the future. I'm trying to be positive about it.
Cool. Kieran, what about yourself? Lastly.
Yeah, I think absolutely optimistic for 2021. I mean, what we've been seeing, you know, over the last number of months is a lot of people have been postponing, you know, their travel arrangements until 2021. It hasn't been a question of cancel. We're starting to get, you know, information and data coming in from the airline partners to say that there's now starting to be an uptake in bookings for next year as well. So that is positive, you know, and people will return. I think that, as I mentioned in the presentation earlier as well, Ireland has performed really well. The PR piece, we're seen as a really safe, and well thought of destination. So that's going to bode very well for us. I think that there are going to be absolute challenges, and I think one of the challenges is going to be that every destination, has suffered this year. No one has had a great tourism season. Let's be honest with you, there's going to be really strong competition out there to get international visitors. So it's really going to be about pushing, as hard as we can, and putting our best foot forward to get as many people traveling back, when the time is right. So marketing is going to be crucial with that aspect in mind,
Perfect. Well, listen, that brings us to the end of today's webinar. I just want to firstly thank the panelists for taking their time to come and chat today and sharing their knowledge. Thank everyone who came to listen as well. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule, and I hope it was worthwhile to you. We will share the presentations and try and wrap up a couple more of those questions as well that had come in that we didn't get to cover. And thanks as well to the Northwest Culture Exchange for hosting this. This is going to be an annual thing, so hopefully we'll be able to see everyone next year in person. And lastly, to the Article Arts Festival for hosting as well. If you want to check out the website again on eaf.ie, we're in the last week of their program, and they've got some great stuff, including a chat with Helen Marriage, the artistic director of Artichoke, on the future of events, which is happening on Thursday morning. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much again, and see you soon. Bye.
Thanks.